without further ado, let's bring out the Steve I think you all are here to see.
Steve Jobs.
I was alone, I took a ride, I didn't know what I would find there. Another road where maybe I could see another kind of mind there.
We are glad you're here.
I like the Beatles.
Do you like that?
Yeah.
I don't know, we heard you like them. We can pick between Dylan and the Beatles. But just to begin, we want to say, both Walt and I want to say, professionally and personally, we are thrilled you're here.
Thank you.
After all this time.
I am too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Thanks for being
So we're going to start off with kind of an easy one. Just this week, you surpassed Microsoft in market valuation, and we thought you might have a thought or two about that.
For those of us that have been in the industry a long time, it's surreal. But it doesn't matter very much. It's not what's important. It's not, what makes you come to work in the morning. It's not why any of our customers buy our products. So I think it's good for us to keep that in mind and just remember what we're doing and why we're doing it.
But I just have to
But
ask,
it is a little surreal.
It is a little surreal. And I remember talking to you right when you were coming back to Apple. Mm-hmm. We talked a number of times, and if I remember correctly, the company was sort of on its way to oblivion.
It was on the rocks, yeah.
So could you ever have imagined something like this? Even though I know market cap isn't why people buy our products or anything, it's just like, what did it feel like when it happened?
Well, Apple was about 90 days away from going bankrupt back then in the early days. And it was much worse than I thought when I went back initially. But there were people there who I'd expected all the good people would have left. And I found these miraculous people, these great people, and I said, why? I tried to ask this as tactfully as I could, but why are you still here? and a lot of them had this little phrase. They said, because I bleed in 6 colors.
Yeah. Which
was the old 6-color Apple logo. And that was code for, because I love what this place stands for, or at least stood for. And that just made all of us want to work that much harder to have it survive and have those values survive and bring it back,
So we want to spend most of this session talking about your thoughts from your really interesting position, because the conference is sort of about the juncture of technology and media, and you're sitting there right at that juncture in a lot of ways. I want to spend most of the session talking about where you think things are going in the future. But there have been some controversies lately that we want to ask you about. And I guess I'd start with Flash and your sort of war with Adobe. So you published a long, open letter, something like, what did you call it, Thoughts on Flash or something like that? So you've clearly stated your case there. But even if, here's my question, even if everything you say in there is true about its inferiority as a technology and other things being available to replace it and already replacing it, is it really fair or the best thing for consumers who buy, say, an iPad or an iPhone to just be abrupt? In other words, if we're in a transition where there are better things in Flash, why be abrupt and cut off consumers?
Sure. Well, 2 things. Number one, I'll come back in a minute to what really happened there, because what you said isn't exactly chronologically correct. But Apple is a company that doesn't have the most resources of everybody in the world. And the way we've succeeded is by choosing what horses to ride really carefully, technically. We try to look for these technical vectors that have a future and that are headed up. And, technology, different pieces of technology kind of go in cycles. They have their springs and summers and autumns, and then they go to the graveyard of technology. And so we try to pick things that are in their springs. And if you choose wisely, you can save yourself an enormous amount of work versus trying to do everything. And you can really put energy into making those new emerging technologies be great on your platform, rather than just okay because you're spreading yourself too thin. So we have a history of doing that. As an example, we went from the 5-inch floppy disk to the 3.5-inch floppy disk with the Mac.
Before other people, right?
We were the first to do that. We made the 3.5-inch floppy disk popular. Sony invented it, and we put it in the first products. And there were some good reasons we did that. We got rid of the floppy disk altogether in 1998 with the first iMac. We also got rid of these things called serial and parallel ports, and we were the first to adopt USB, even though Intel had invented it. You first saw it in mass on iMacs. And so we have gotten rid of things. We were one of the first to get rid of optical drives with the MacBook Air. And I think things are moving in that direction as well. And sometimes when we get rid of things like the floppy disk drive on the original iMac, people call us crazy.
Or at least premature, maybe.
No, they call us crazy.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes you just have to pick the things that look like they're going to be the right horses to ride going forward. And Flash looks like a technology that had its day, but is waning. And HTML5 looks like the technology that's really on the ascendancy right now. And to incorporate Flash into systems is a lot of work. There's no smartphone shipping with Flash on it now, as you know.
But you know that there will be, right?
Well, you know, there's going to have been for the last 2 or 3 years, and every 6 months it gets updated. So I'm sure that eventually they will. And there's a lot of issues with that in terms of battery life and, you know, security and other things. But more importantly, HTML5 is starting to emerge. You know, there's been an avalanche of people that have said, we're doing HTML5 video. And the video looks better, and it works better, and you don't need a plug-in to run it. And so while 75% of the video in the web may be in Flash, you know, 25% going to 50% very shortly is also available in HTML.
So do you say that to consumers? I mean, talking besides technology, it's consumers.
I think consumers outside of the Valley and our industry aren't having this issue.
Except when they hold up their iPad and they go to a web page and there's like a hole there where a video would be.
You know, there are...
They don't know, they may not know what Flash is.
There are holes in some websites, but those holes are getting plugged real fast. You know, the holes that exist now are ads. So I understand that's a problem for some people.
Not entirely.
Not entirely, but that's the number one holes that are there.
And what about the other community that I think is impacted by this, and that's developers? Because what I think a lot of the coverage of this Flash issue has overlooked is that, yes, Flash is a video container, and there are other video containers that actually have a very rising share, H.264 and native HTML5, but it's also a development environment, and there are entire websites, some of them quite beautiful, written on a Flash platform.
An even more popular development environment was HyperCard, and we were okay to axe that.
It wasn't more popular than Flash, was it?
Oh, in its day, sure it was.
On your platform, right?
No. HyperCard was huge in its day because it was accessible to anybody. Right. So, I mean, you could be a HyperCard developer.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't know about that.
But, you know, we have over 200,000 apps on the App Store. So something must be going right in terms of attracting developers to our platform.
So your goal, just to finish this up, your ultimate goal is to get rid of Flash or just to move?
Our goal is really easy. We didn't start off to have a war with Flash or anything else. We just made a technical decision that we weren't going to put the energy into getting Flash on our platform. We told Adobe, if you ever have this thing running fast, come back and show us, which they never did. And, but we think we're not going to use it. And that was it. And we shipped the iPhone, and it doesn't use Flash. And it wasn't until we shipped the iPad